All right, guys, welcome to this week's video breakdown. This week, we get to talk about how absolutely insane clean energy and clean investment in general has gotten since 2018. We're also going to talk about adjustable rate mortgages and just how painful that has been with interest rates being so high. And then finally, we're also going to talk about whether or not you should go to grad school and if it's actually going to have a good ROI. So, Bennett, if you're willing to kick us off with clean investment, let's get into it.
Yeah, awesome. So I'm Bennett. I am an economic research associate here. And this week I wanted to show a really cool little database put together in a joint effort by the Rhodium Group, as well as a research group at MIT called the Center for Energy and Environmental Policy Research. And this just puts manufacturing, energy and industry, and clean investments into perspective relative to their 2018 level. So looking at this first graph on the screen, this last column, we see a $213 billion spent in just this year, which is a pretty substantial 37% annual increase in clean investment. But they also go into the breakdowns of the subcategories. So looking at just the manufacturing elements of this, we can see that a bulk of this is coming from batteries. So we see a very, very rapidly increased investment in this area, where just in quarter two alone, investment hit $13.6 billion. So this is a five-fold increase from just 2 years ago. And to put this in perspective, I mean, like before seeing this, the thing that I had in mind was on how far we are from our like global climate goals. But I think it is pretty encouraging to see this rapid increase in investment. And I really highly encourage everyone to go visit the link because all of these graphs are interactive and to play around and see what's increasing in these different sectors.
I totally agree with you, Bennett, that it's pretty easy to hear the constant doom and gloom around climate action and climate investment. And I think it's becoming very clear that it is a priority. And not only is it a priority, it's becoming a source of profit for so many organizations. And so this is proof that they're putting their money where their mouth is. And I'm guessing we'll see some change from it, particularly if this sort of thing can turn into really big innovations with batteries, really big other energy innovations that turn this into an exponential curve that just has a way, way steeper slope. And then we start achieving our goals, even if they might be a little bit late. So, very, very cool. Thank you for sharing. The next thing for today is I want to talk about whether or not you should go to grad school because there unfortunately are a lot of reasons to go to grad school that don't actually turn into financial rewards. And at the end of the day, anyone thinking about getting a degree, particularly a degree after undergraduate, you have to think about it like a financial investment that's going to pay you money in the future. And the amount of money that it pays you in the future has to be worth the amount of money you pay for it today. And the way we represent that in finance is ROI, return on investment. And so I found this incredible study by the Free Opportunity Organization, and they broke down exactly when and how often certain graduate degrees are worth it. And so I just really wanted to highlight a couple of the more interesting facts that I learned that surprised me. The first one was that it's actually often better to go to a public university than it is to go to most others. And it's particularly better than going to a private for-profit university. And so the only thing that actually did better in terms of actually making graduates money was Ivy Leagues. The next best thing was actually your state schools and your public schools. And so that to me was really surprising because I was expecting that the more you pay for school, the more prestigious it will be, and therefore the more money you'll make in the future. But that gets really binary. And so, particularly with something like an MBA, if you want to really make a lot of money off of that MBA, the best thing to do is to go to a sort of a name brand school. So, the Stanfords, the Harvards of the world, or if that's not necessarily on the table for whatever reason, going to a state school, not paying a lot of money, and making it really, really valuable that way. So I think it's really important to ask yourself if you're thinking about going to graduate school, why are you going to graduate school? And are you going for a reason that's going to have a positive ROI? All right, I've done enough talking. John, will you tell us about adjustable rate mortgages?
Yep, sure. To happy to jump in on that one. So with mortgage rates reaching 7.5% right now, we're really seeing a slowdown, mostly this month in refinancing. But overall, mortgage demand is down because rates are a lot higher than they were just a couple of years ago. Even when I got my house, I think I sneaked it under 3%, which would be a steal these days. So hopefully we see that another time, but you never know. So when rates do get this high, you start to reach a decision on what type of mortgage to get. So the typical fixed rate mortgage locks you in 30 years from the date. So typically around this time, that's going to be 7.25%, maybe a little lower if you have great credit. But there is other alternatives, namely adjustable rate mortgages. So adjustable rate mortgages work how they sound. The initial rate that you get is usually lower than the one that you would get with a fixed rate mortgage. So if you're looking at 7.25%, you can usually sneak under that with an adjustable rate mortgage. And then over time, once that introductory period ends, which could be 5 or 10 years around that mark, it will readjust to the market rate. So whatever interest rates are at that point, when that introductory period ends, is what you're typically going to pay, and that's going to lock in. And then from there, depending on the type of adjustable rate mortgage you get, that number could change. It could stay the same. So a couple things to be aware of adjustable rate mortgages is that it can be really beneficial if you expect rates to go down later. Because once that introductory period ends, say rates are where they are now and they're at 3%, or 3.5% in 10 years, you would lock in that 3.5%. But if rates are higher, say there's still where they are now, or 8%, you would lock in that rate, which can be detrimental. So you want to make sure to look at the terms, because there are both government and private adjustable rate mortgages, and they have different terms to them. So reading the fine print on that, asking a mortgage broker or a real estate agent or both is probably a good option. And then beyond that, there is a way out. So say you do reach the end of that 10-year period, and mortgage rates are lower, you don't have to stick with the adjustable rate mortgage. You can always refinance into a fixed rate mortgage and lock in, whatever that rate would be at that fixed rate, and then get off of that adjustable plan. So it's a little bit of strategy, a little bit of, kind of guessing what the market will be. So there is some danger, some risk involved in that, but there is an option to refinance later. And the housing market's always changing. So within that 10-year period, or even after your introductory period, a couple of years later, maybe interest rates fall. So there is some flexibility there. But it is, of course, important to make sure that, first of all, you can afford the house if that interest rate spikes up a little bit. But if that initial payment is a little bit lower with an adjustable rate mortgage, you want to save some money on the front end. That can be an option. But of course, always read the fine print, because things are different with different mortgages.
Thank you, John. And I think it's sometimes rare for people to talk about ARMs or adjustable rate mortgages in a positive light, but you're totally right, because they tend to get a bad rap, particularly because they were involved in the 2008 crisis, and there was a lot of talk around it with the Big Short, where people were going to have interest rates jump and suddenly not be able to pay for their houses. But times have pretty seriously changed, and we're living in an entirely different interest rate environment and an entirely different housing market. And so something that has been totally written off is often something that has become very affordable as a result, because there's not a whole lot of demand for it. So, John, I think you're totally right. There are opportunities available specifically for people who are really trying to get into a house right now, and that interest rate is the thing that's holding them back. Because then 5 to 10 years from now, there may be a situation where they can refinance to that lower rate and still have locked it in early. So thank you for that, guys. This has been this week's video breakdown, and I hope everyone has a fantastic rest of your day. Bye.